Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel.
Tater's gonna tate.
If you're new here, we've been doing some board game stuff in addition to all of our other content. We're typically either on Margaritaville at Sea cruises or mini golfing, but we do other things such as board games. None of these videos are sponsored, but if you do want to support the channel, there's affiliate links in the description for these games, and the one we're about to talk about now. We have a shop, and you can buy us a coffee. All these different ways you can support the channel, but the easiest, quickest, cheapest way to do it is to like and subscribe. Now on to the video. Today's video is about Cribbage Wars. We did a full-length playthrough, but the thing about a full-length playthrough in this game is, one, it's a really long game, and two, you can't guaranteed hit every single thing of it in a single game necessarily. It's by, in some ways, random chance, and other ways not. So people have asked for kind of a rules video and not a playthrough, so that's what this video is it's just the rules. We are not going to play through the game at all. If you want to see that, link in the description. Go to the what is that thing called? The playlist or whatever of all of our games that we've played, and Cribbage Wars is in there. Alright, the first rule of Cribbage Wars is it's cribbage. So if you don't know how to play cribbage, learn how to play cribbage. This is not the game for you if you've never played cribbage before. This is really kind of a little more cribbage plus in that this assumes you already know how to play cribbage, you know the standard rules of how cribbage is played, and the game board is set up in such a way that if you absolutely wanted to, you could just play straight up cribbage on it and ignore everything that's about to follow in this video. But why would you? Why would you have a Cribbage Wars board if you weren't going to go full on Cribbage Wars? Rule number 2, there is no skunk line. Because it's such a massive game board that just, if you're skunked, that you're playing an incredibly awful bunch of hands of cribbage, and to the point of, are you even playing, bro? So skunking is just not even a thing. Now, if you were to play straight up cribbage on it, I guess you'd have to kind of know where the skunk lines normally are. But for intents and purposes of this game, there is no skunking. We have a shop. Did you know that?
You ordered tea?
Yep.
I made tea.
Okay.
There are 3 different colors that make Cribbage Wars different. And those are the blue spaces, the green spaces, and the red spaces. So we're going to start with the blue. There are 2 kinds of blue spaces. And unless you want to start with red, because that's the first one you hit. Okay, we're going to start with red. Red is good in this case. There's 3 red spots on the board. There's this one here that goes to there.
Which is the first one you come to in the game.
There's this one over here that goes to here. And there's this one here that goes to here. Each one is 20 spaces. If you land in that first red line on any of those sections, you immediately get to jump forward those 20 spaces.
And however it is that you land there. Like,
yes, whether it's during play of game or whether it's from your hand or your crib.
Yeah.
If you land in that spot, you get to move forward 20 spaces. So that's a really good one to land in, red.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't think red would be good, but it is. The next one you come to is blue. Like I said, there's 2 blue lines. There's two different kinds of blue lines. There are single blue lines and there are triple blue lines. So here's a single blue line. Here's a triple blue line. You don't want to land in blue no matter what you do. So let's talk about single first. Single blue line is the penalty space. There's 2 ways that this works. If you're playing as 2 players or if you're playing as 3 or 4 players, it's different rules. We're 2 people, so the 2 people rule is if Ethan lands in this blue bar, he has to go back 20 spaces and I get to go forward 20 spaces regardless of where I'm at on the board. So that's a 40 spot penalty if you land in the blue. And there's this bar here right after the edge of regular cribbage. There's this bar here.
Which is what this is, by the way.
Yeah,
this is where
that's
regular cribbage ends.
That's 121. That's what those red marks are.
Right.
So there's that bar there, and then the other one. There's one here.
Yep.
And there's one right here at the end.
Yep.
You don't want to land. The only other rule to a penalty space is you cannot land. It cannot send anybody into a blue space. So if I was going backwards, he lands there, and I go backwards, and my 20 spaces is going to land me here in this, I go past it. You cannot land in a penalty position. So that's this normal penalty one. If you were playing more than 2 people, the person who lands in this blue peg goes into one of these little side pegs and sits. They lose a turn. So they're going to lose their next turn.
All right, now a key thing that you're leaving out is what else happens when you land on the single blue.
All right, I've already said I go forward and you go backwards. So what did I miss? Oh, you immediately fold your hands.
And crib, if you have one.
Hands up.
Yeah. So
And crib.
hand and crib.
Yes. You don't
Immediately.
Get to,
So it could be mid game, like you could be in the middle of the back and forth, and then immediately you hit this blue and it's over.
And you fold your hands.
Now the other player will keep playing their existing hand if it is the middle of the run of play.
Yeah.
But it's another massive reason why you don't want to land on this single blue stripe.
Yes. Triple blue spots. And there's one here, there's one here, there's one here, and there's one here. These are time traps. These are the bane of my existence. I have time trapped 4 times in a row, where instead of this being the board, my pieces think this is the board. So this is how this works. You're playing along, and you land at any point in one of those 3 blue spots. Now, instead of continuing on your merry way, you have to go back up this little blue strip, back here, and then you can continue on. And if you're me, you're going to land in it again. Over and over again until Ethan wins.
Until you finally get a hand that takes you past it.
Got to get over it.
Yeah.
I think the record is, and it was this one that got me. The record is 4. I went around this thing 4 times before I got out of there. I just basically lived there.
All right, so somebody commented on our original playthrough video. Look, we already know how to play cribbage. We just want the rules. Well, here's the thing about knowing how to play cribbage with this is that's fun and games through the initial 121 pegs. Not so much after that, because regular cribbage kind of goes out the window. The reason being is that it could be fun and games back here where it's like, well, let's say like here, all right? So you're past the red. Well, you already kind of are anyway. But I just want to make it clear, like, you're not going to hit this and go ahead spaces. This is the end of that track, so you've already missed the boat on that. Now you're over here. Now you get the go. Now you get a 31. Now you get the go, and you're just inching forward to this blue situation. You could be back here and think, oh, okay, maybe I could do a little bit of go, and I could do some 31 action, and I'm all right. But meanwhile, you've stacked your cards in such a way that you were really thinking about, well, I need, at least I've got 2 pair. At least no matter what happens, I'm back here, 2 pair, that's 4, so I'll do this. This is kind of how it's going to go. But meanwhile, you got points during the run of play, and the next thing you know it, you're in the blue.
Okay, so this is what he's talking about. This is one of my favorite things to do to Ethan. Ethan will be
the worst spot is right there.
In one of these 2 spots in front of that penalty thing. And we will start a new round, and I will throw a 5. You never lead with a 5 in cribbage. You know that. I know that. Ethan knows that. But when he's 2 away from a penalty spot, I'm throwing a 5.
Yeah.
It works especially well when all he's kept in his hand are face cards.
Yeah.
Because then he has no choice but to
or face cards and 5. That's even worse.
To hit 15, and he's going to hit the 2, and now he's in the penalty thing. Now, The rules that I found for this game, because it didn't come with any rules, I found
Hence this video.
I found some online. They're very basic. Everything I found was all like repeated of the same thing. So what we have been doing is if you land in one of those blue things, on your next turn you immediately start on the track. We don't do these 2 pegs here because you're in the blue penalty.
Yeah.
So if that was where we were at, I hit a 2, I landed in the blue. Now on my next thing I get 4, I immediately go here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whether or not that's right, and you're supposed to count those 2 blue pegs, we don't know.
Yeah.
But that's what we decided so that we would be consistent. What is beeping?
I don't think it's like really affected gameplay in a way where it's like, if only we didn't, do it that way, then I would have won. I lost by 2. Personally, it's never been that close.
Yes. So that's what the time trap does.
Yep.
The last kind of specialty rule here is green. And our green happens to be kind of teal looking. So there's 1 here and there's 1 here. And these are, it doesn't say.
That they're warp spaces.
They're like warp speed or something like that. So, you're here. You get 2 points. You land on this green.
Yeah.
Now, instead of going 1, 2, 3, 15, 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, so there's 23 spaces here.
This is not recording, by the way.
Okay, well, then you better do good camera work. Okay, so from that green spot, there are 23 spaces here to get us to the end of where this lets out. It looks like it lets out here, it does not. This goes over here in these 3 single spots. This one, if you land here, this goes over here. But this does not.
It took us a couple games to realize.
Because all of a sudden I was like, well, what are these 3 spots for? And then I saw these other ones that look just like it, and I'm like, oh, that goes over here. It's just laid out funny.
Yep.
So you can take the 23 spots here, or you could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'd rather use 10 spots than 23. 11 than 23.
Yeah.
Right? That makes more sense.
Yep.
So these are like express lanes on the highway.
So this teal line is your last hope, because after that there's nothing that advances you
There's
fast
nothing
through the
good
board
after
ever
that.
since
Yeah, there's
after
nothing
that.
good. And if you hit this red one, you go right past the teal one.
Yeah.
So it's either hit that or hit that.
Yeah,
can't
in
do
an
both.
ideal world you hit this, and then this is not a consideration. This is a very tough one to get out of, because you just keep
Not as bad as this
Doom
one. I still
spiraling.
think this is the worst one. Yeah, that's the worst one to get out of.
yeah.
So those are the specialty rules. So everything else is just basic cribbage. That's all you're playing.
Yeah.
I am aware my counting has been off on that last Cribbage Wars video. I appreciate you pointing it out. I see what I was doing.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I would have beat him anyway.
All right, so one more. I want to really reinforce this, because, again, it's very hard to unlearn this about this game. You don't necessarily want to play standard cribbage strategy in this game. If you're this close to this, you want it too. You don't want to worry about blasting past it. So if you can do 15-2 or a pair or something to get you there,
Or
what
only
you
keep-
don't want to do is a go and then 15-2 and miss it. So, and your opponent knows it, so they're going to be trolling you with stuff that you may or may not have an answer for in your hand.
Yes, I will. I definitely will.
But the same is true over here. Again, like, the worst place to be, I say, is right there, because it's very difficult to miss the go. It's very difficult to miss the 15-2 or the pair. And so if you can somehow, first of all, have enough random cards in your hand that you know it going into it, that's what you're dealing with. So yes, you are going to put pairs and stuff in the other person's crib, because you don't want to obsess over the 2 points, and then that's what that did for you, is it puts you right here where you don't want to be. So if you can weather the storm, you got to make sure you've got 4 in the minimum to pass this. But then meanwhile, it's like, oh, well, I've really banked my card, so I went to here. It's like, great, so now you missed the speed thing, but you also missed the time loop. So that's the kind of stuff you're dealing with on this game that can be very maddening. And again, part of it just has to do with, like, you're so used to standard cribbage, it's hard to think beyond the usual approach.
So, who would you recommend Cribbage Wars to?
Definitely the avid cribbage player. It is no guarantee. Like, somebody could be the world's greatest cribbage player, and there's absolutely no guarantee that person's going to win, because these time trap things can happen.
Yeah,
You can hit the red and jump ahead. There's all kinds of stuff.
There is different strategy that you have to do over here that you don't do over here necessarily.
And we've both had games where one of us was way out in front, and then this happens, or this happens, or this happens, and suddenly it's a tighter race.
Yeah.
Or the person can hit this critical juncture and skip all this nonsense and just keep going. But yeah, I mean, first and foremost, you have to know how to play cribbage, or this game's really not for you.
It does take... the board is roughly 3 times the size, not quite. I think I counted 331 pegs or something in that area, where standard cribbage is 121. So it's almost 3 times as long. But by the time I'm done going around all the little loops, I've done 3 times. So the game does take closer to an hour to play, as opposed to regular cribbage. So there's that. I like the additional strategy of this. I like the thinking aspect that comes in, you know, how am I going to avoid hitting one of these spaces? How am I going to force him to hit one of these spaces? I enjoy that aspect of the strategy aspect of it. I don't know that Ethan does as much.
But just the same, thanks for your feedback. Somebody emailed me in desperation saying, please tell me the rules. So I dutifully did it, and that led to this video. Somebody else said, we already know how to play cribbage. What's the rules? So we just know. All right, so here's the speed version of all this that we just said. Red line jumps you forward if you land exactly on it. Single blue, you immediately forfeit your hand in progress, whatever that means. And your crib, if you have one, that's 2-player. If it's 3 or more player, you forfeit your hands in your crib, but then you go in the timeout spot and you miss a turn. Triple blue.
You go backwards 20.
Backward 20.
Yep. Opponents go forward 20.
Yep.
Yes, okay.
Triple blue, you go around in this loop until you break free of it by getting a hand that's decent. But you've got to really time your approach to miss it. And that's easier said than done. The teal is, there's only 2 of them. The first biggie takes you to here, not here. And this one takes you here. Of the 2, this is the one that's the really good one, because you miss a lot compared to this.
Miss a lot of bad.
At least with this one, you have a little chance of, like, you could hit this red and jump, but you could also hit this blue and send yourself back 20. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that this necessarily takes you back to here. I don't think it does. These holes are so tightly
5,
drilled.
10, 15, 20.
Yeah, so no, you don't even get the benefit of, like, another crack at the teal line.
Yep. I love it. Yeah. We haven't gone back to regular crib. We have not pulled out the cribbage board since we got this.
Yeah.
And technically, because it's got cribbage on here,
if we really wanted to just play straight up cribbage, we could.
Yeah,
but
we could
just
use this board, but we don't. Yeah. Came with cards. Cards were decent quality. It's got a spot to put the pegs, but we basically just leave them on the board. Mm-hmm. I like it.
So let us know what you think in the comments, like and subscribe. And if you want to get your own, there's an affiliate link in the description.
We'll see you in the next one.
How about this?
No!